There's evidence here of homicide that should be investigated to see if it is or isn't homicide.
Dr. Michael Baden, former New York City chief medical examiner, hired by Epstein's brother. In the early hours of August 10th, 2019, inside a federal jail in Lower Manhattan, one of the most closely watched detainees in the United States was left alone, unobserved for long stretches, inside a unit designed for constant supervision. What followed would produce a single official conclusion and a long list of documented lapses. Jeffrey Epstein was being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. He was housed in the Special Housing Unit, a restrictive area typically reserved for inmates requiring heightened control. According to the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Inspector General, MCC staff were required to conduct regular rounds and ensure key custody directives, especially those tied to Epstein's risk status, were followed. They were not. 2 days before his death, on August 8th, Epstein met with his attorneys and signed a new last will and testament. MCC officials later stated they did not learn of the will until after he died. On August 9th, a critical safeguard disappeared. Epstein's cellmate was transferred out, and no replacement was assigned, even though written direction required that he have a cellmate at all times. That night, on paper, the safeguards were clear: routine rounds, accurate logs, functioning surveillance. The timeline documented by federal investigators shows repeated breakdowns. Epstein was last known to be under normal SHU supervision that evening. During the overnight shift, the 2 officers assigned to the unit failed to carry out required checks. The Office of Inspector General later found that staff did not perform rounds as required and created inaccurate records of their activity. In plain terms, the paperwork said checks happened. The investigation concluded they did not. At approximately 6:30 a.m., Epstein was found in his cell. Staff initiated emergency response. He was transported to New York Presbyterian Lower Manhattan Hospital and pronounced dead at 7:36 a.m. The official medical determination followed. Dr. Barbara Sampson, New York City's chief medical examiner, announced,
"Our investigation concluded that the cause of Mr. Epstein's death was hanging, and the manner of death was suicide. We stand by that determination."
That statement was released publicly on August 16, 2019. Yet even as that conclusion was formalized, the custody failures were already becoming public. On the day of Epstein's death, Attorney General William Barr issued a statement.
"I can understand people whose minds went to sort of the worst-case scenario, because it was a perfect storm of screw-ups."
Within days, Barr publicly criticized what he called serious irregularities at the facility and directed both an FBI investigation and an Inspector General investigation. The Inspector General's final report, released in June 2023, described the failures as numerous and serious, including violations of MCC and Bureau of Prisons policies. Michael Horowitz, Inspector General of the Department of Justice, later stated,
"While we determined MCC New York staff engaged in significant misconduct, we did not uncover evidence contradicting the FBI's determination. There was no criminality in connection with how Epstein died."
Then there was the surveillance issue. After Epstein's death, MCC staff attempted to recover video from the SHU recording system. The FBI seized the relevant drives. Forensic analysis concluded there were catastrophic disk failures in a key DVR system, and that no recordings were available after July 29, 2019 from that system. In other words, the record of what happened during the period leading into August 10th was not fully preserved by the jail's own surveillance infrastructure. These documented incongruities shaped public doubt without requiring any alternate theory. A detainee required to have a cellmate was alone. Required checks were not performed. Logs were falsified. The surveillance system did not produce a complete record. Epstein's attorney, David Schoen, publicly questioned the suicide conclusion.
I don't think he committed suicide, because he was very engaged in the idea of fighting the case. To kill himself 9 days later wouldn't have made a lot of sense.
The medical examiner's office stood by its determination. A private forensic review commissioned by Epstein's family publicly disagreed with aspects of the autopsy interpretation. Federal investigators focused on staff conduct and institutional compliance. By the end of the morning on August 10th, the largest question was no longer simply what happened in one cell. It was how a high-profile prisoner, inside a unit built for control, could die during a night when the most basic safeguards failed in sequence, and when the documentary record of that night would later be incomplete.